Well, thank you, Trish, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for being with me this morning. And as always, a big thank you to Trish Walker for making all the arrangements. Before we get started, just let me say that we'll have the questions and answer period, the Q&A period at the end. I think we'll have plenty of time. I don't expect that the images, the photographs that I show will take the full hour. We're just making some adjustments here.
Let's see. It doesn't seem to be sharing on my end. So let's see.
Can they see this image?
That's what I'm checking. Yeah, it's
interesting.
Yeah, it's having some issues. So let me. I am going to try something different here. You go through yours, and I will just let me know when you switch, and I will pull it up on my screen and share.
Okay, we're going to continue, and Trish is going to make some adjustments. Hopefully you can all see this. Last October, if you were with us, I talked about the Potomac Yards here in Alexandria and what it meant to the Alexandria economy. The Potomac Yards, the rail yards are gone. And in its place, we have the Potomac Yards shopping area with Target and Staples and a host of other stores. They disappeared probably, the rail yard disappeared around 1990, and the shopping mall came in along with some townhouses, and that's what you see now. This morning, we're going to be talking about another rail line that still remains. It has not disappeared like the Potomac Yards. But this line too has meant a lot to Alexandria, its economy. We'll be talking about the Potomac River Generating Station. We'll be talking about the Robinson Terminal, both extremely important to the Alexandria economy. This spur line, what I mean by a spur line is exactly what you see on the screen right now. It's kind of a switch off the main line. And let me go back to one. Okay, this is a map. You probably pass over this spur line every day. If you come up traveling northbound on US 1, the Richmond Highway, which I show here on this image, or you go on the GW Parkway northbound, you pass over this line and you see it on Route 1. If you look over just before the shopping mall, the Potomac Yard shopping mall, you'll see it on the right-hand side. And if you go up the GW Parkway, you will pass the crossing. We'll talk about those in just a second. The first, once this spur line comes off the main line of the CSX Railroad, it crosses over the Slaters Lane area. And this street, the first street it crosses over is the Potomac Green Drive. It then proceeds eastward This is Slaters Lane. And you can see by the warning signals there, there's a rail line there, and that rail line is the line that came off the main line of the CSX railroad. It's crossing over now Slaters Lane. And it's going to now then cross over the GW Parkway. If I can get the next image to come up. Okay, this is the GW Parkway looking south. And as I said in the beginning, many of you have crossed over this almost every day coming to and from your place of employment. This line has been inactive basically for the last 9 or 10 years. And I'll explain why in a minute, but still in all, the line looks to be in pretty good shape. So if the railroad, the owner, which is now Norfolk Southern, wants to rehabilitate this line, they can do it quite easily. So now we progress eastward from the GW Parkway, and we're coming on now. We're looking back towards the GW Parkway, which I show here with the arrow. And on the right-hand side of the screen is the GenOn. That's the name of the generating station. The owner is the GenOn company. It's also known as the Potomac River Generating Station. And for many years, this power plant was very important to the area of Alexandria to DC. Let's see, we want to get the next image to come up here. Okay, this is the power plant that I'm talking about. This is the road here is Bashford Lane, and the power plant here, which is inactive now, is the GenOn power plant. I'll talk about some of the background of the plant in just a second. Okay, this was quite a plant. Here are the cooling towers. Here you see the method that they use to bring the coal up to the furnace to generate the power by creating steam. This is called a coal-fired generating plant. And the next image basically shows, and I don't know if I can get this, but here, right along here is the GW Parkway. That's fine. Thank you, Trish. That the GW Parkway is right here. And this area here, it occupied about 20 acres of area. And it basically started in around the 1950s, generating about 500 megawatts of power for DC, for Maryland, and for areas of Virginia. It was also the backup power plant for the Pentagon. It remains, this has been decommissioned in 2013 and remains in the hands of the GenOn power plant, or power company, that is now remediating, that is cleaning up the area so that in time this will be used for a mixed use area, having restaurants and townhouses and the like. But you can see here, the rail line comes in, and the yard that served the GenOn power plant basically shows quite a few tracks. Those tracks still remain. But this is the spur line that we're talking about too, coming again past GW Parkway, past the GenOn plant. And we're going to go to the next image and basically show the tracks leaving the area of the power plant, heading east. And you can see them starting to turn south at the end of the, or towards the middle of the image here. And we're going then progress on the next image along the Mount Vernon Trail. And at the corner of Royal Street and Bashford Lane, it will turn south. The tracks will turn south. And you can see them now turning south here. This is the Mount Vernon Trail that goes that follows basically the tracks all along the way right to the end. Here, the weeds don't indicate that this part of the trackage is in good shape, but we'll see in a minute that the rest of the line appears to be in real good shape. I think just clearing these weeds out and the brush is probably no big task. Okay, let's go to the next image. Okay, the next, heading south now, and here are those weeds I talked about. This is the Canal Center Plaza, a group of offices in this building. The tracks are here. The river looking eastward is just beyond this complex. The next image, Trish, shows the next image shows the line as it leaves the Canal Center Plaza. Still a few areas of growth, but you can see the ties are in pretty good shape. And we're approaching Montgomery Street now. The next image shows as we cross over Montgomery Street, and the townhouses on the left, looking south now. The river's on the left. And the individuals that live in this townhouse have a pretty good view of, or had a pretty good view of the coal trains that came by, or any of the freight trains that came by. And as I said in the beginning, the line has not been used for the last 9 or 10 years, so they're not bothered by any of the noise. But the line, again, appears to be in good shape. We're now going to cross over Madison Street, and we're going to look north here now, but still the townhouses to the right. No brush or weeds. And we're going to progress from Madison Street to along the river to Oronoco Bay Park. This is quite a popular place in the summertime. It's right along the river, and the bay, which is in kind of a indentation in the river itself, is very popular in terms of people coming, picnicking, and so on and so forth. There's the bay, good picture of the bay. And it's, show the park area in a minute. The next image, the best place to view the bay is from the Wythe Street Plaza, which is, Wythe Street is basically an extension of the First Street here in Alexandria. And so you can easily view the bay in the next image. You come down off of Wythe Street, cross the tracks are there, and you can see the bay there in front of you. And the Oronoco Bay Park runs right along and parallel to the tracks. Let's go to the next image, Trish. This is looking back at where we just came from, looking north now. And I think, and one of the instructions of people using the park is to keep a leash on the dog, and this gentleman seems to be doing just that on the right here. And you can see people walking along the Mount Vernon Trail parallel to the tracks. We're going to hit something very interesting here in the next image. Here we're coming now along Mount Vernon Trail. Along the tracks are here. They're going to bend slightly to the east now. But I want you to take a close look at this area right here. These ties here, I think have been around for a while. Let's take a close look at those ties, Trish, on the next image. I think that at one time, and I'll show you a map that kind of speaks to this, that these ties were part of a rail link off the main line of, at the time, the Southern Railroad. But they're the only indication along the spur line that there at one time was a rail link in the 1800s. If we go to the next image, you'll see what I'm talking about. At one time, the Alexandria, Loudoun, and Hampshire Railroad came in along the river and into the Bay Area right here. The Alexandria, Loudoun, and Hampshire Railroad operated in the 1800s. It was then purchased by the Southern Railroad Company. Next image, Trish. This is extremely important, an extremely important map, because it shows the line coming down right here. The line at that time was owned by the Southern Railway Company. We're talking early 1900s now. Here's Wythe Street right here. I said we crossed over Montgomery, Madison, Wythe Street right here. And you can see at one time there was a rail line that came down into what we know now as Old Town Alexandria. And you see all these companies along the wharf area, along the shoreline. There are chemical companies, there's a mill right here, mill property, vulcanizing company. All these companies are gone now, and they're replaced by beautiful hotels and condominium buildings. You wouldn't know that at one time there was a rail line there, although someone told me, one of the construction workers there told me that they did dig up remnants of a rail line that served this area. And I think from the map coming down through the Bay Area here, the Oronoco Bay Area, that those ties I showed you before could very well be remnants of this line here that served Old Town when there were manufacturing and businesses along the wharf area. Okay, let's go to the next image. So this is just a rehash of where we were, the tracks, the Mount Vernon Trail, and we're going to take a sharp turn to the left now and approach Pendleton Street. In the background is another business that we're going to be talking about that was served by this rail link, this spur line as we call it. It's called the Robinson Terminal. So there were two businesses along this line. We just talked about the plant, the generating plant, the power plant. And now we're going to talk about Robinson Terminal. The next image, okay, so the tracks come in, they cross over Union Street. They cross over Union Street. Pendleton Street is off to the right. Parts of the Robinson Terminal are here. And the next image shows them basically coming to an end at the Robinson Terminal. The river is in the background and the Robinson Terminal is to the right. So we've traveled probably maybe 1 to 2 miles off the main line of the CSX Railroad and ended the spur line, or what we call the tracks to Union Street here at Robinson Terminal. These tracks are no longer here. Let's go to the next image. This is an aerial view of the Robinson Terminal, and I just want you to focus on the right-hand side here. You can see the tracks coming in. There's Pendleton Street coming in here. The tracks come in and come alongside the Robinson Terminal, which is no longer here. And I'll talk to that in just a minute. Okay, the next image. Tracks are gone. And lo and behold, next image shows that all of the Robinson Terminal is gone. Can we put up the next image, Trish, please? Okay. This is what I was talking about. This whole area was occupied by the Robinson Terminal. This terminal basically was built in 1940s. It served the Washington Post. All of their newsprint was housed in this terminal building. It was sold to a developer in 2013. The redevelopment never took place. And so the whole terminal was demolished. And kind of a sidebar, let's see if I can go to the next image. Let's see, we want to go to the next. Okay, here's the Robinson Terminal as it existed in November of last year. I was there for many days in November watching them take down this terminal building. To me, it was a piece of history. And there are many pictures I have, many photographs, but I just want to show you a couple more. As they demolished the building, let's go to the next image, Trish, if we can. This is what was left of the Robinson Terminal. And it's all cleared away now. And I'll tell you what's going to go in there in a minute. But interestingly enough, I made friends with one of the workers, and I wanted some kind of a souvenir of the building. And I asked him could I have one of the letters off the side of the building? Initially, he said yes, but in the final analysis, he said no. But you can take a picture of me, and I'll hold one of the letters up. In the next image, excuse me, there's one of the workers holding the letter I up. That was part of the lettering of the Robinson Terminal along the side of the building. What's going in there now is the following. The city of Alexandria purchased the area. And let's get the next image up. And what they're going to put in here is something called the Alex Renew Project or River Renew Project. They basically are going to improve the sewer cleaning capability so that the water that goes into the river is clean, and they will have a tunnel system below this area here, below where the Robinson Terminal existed. This will probably be completed around the year 2025. So if you go there now at the end of Oronoco Street, you'll see a vacant area, but I expect that very soon there's going to be a lot of construction. The cleaning tunnels, the tunnels are part of the cleaning system that will clean the water that goes into the river. Will be underneath this area, which will be probably an area that it will be available to those to view the river, to walk along. And as it stands now, that's what is planned. Let's go. We only have a couple more slides here. This is what's planned. There's Oronoco Street. This is the mixed use area that's at the top of the Alex Renew Project underneath. And this is Pendleton Street. And I just want to show you here in this particular view, you see the tracks coming in on the Union Street. Here's Union Street right here. The Union Street Spur line that we've talked a lot about. Here it comes in to what was the Robinson Terminal. Okay, next, in this particular view, you see the river in the back. We're looking east across the river to Maryland. And there's a very small park called West's Point Park. My wife and I go there very often for lunch, take a takeout and sit there and just kind of view the boats going by. But West Point Park is still home to something I think very historic and shown in the next image. If we can show that up. Trish, can we get that next one up? There it is. Right at the foot of West Point's Oronoco Street and West Point's Park is this wharf area. And you can use your imagination to see how maybe at one time it was used to bring in raw material. I look at this this particular area here, and I think that at one time it was probably possible, and let's get that next image up, Trish, that this was an area that commercially was not moving newsprint, but perhaps was moving things like tobacco from ships in the 1800s. Trish, can we get that last slide up, please? And so if you look at the wharf area here, that we just showed, this is kind of an artist drawing of what Alexandria looked like in the early 1800s. And I can envision that these boats, these sailcraft, would be there to pick up the tobacco, which came from the fields all around Alexandria, onto the boats for distribution up and down the Potomac River. I think that's the last image I have, and I'd be very, very happy to open it up to any questions that you might have. So here's that first image again. You can see where we started here, right here, and we came down across Slaters Lane, across the GW Parkway, past the generating station, the power plant, and turning south towards the Robinson Terminal. So does anybody have any questions that you have? I'd be glad to answer them and discuss.
So we had two questions in the chat.
Okay.
The first one was, how will Alexandria government capitalize on the gaining popularity of trails and outdoor activities? Will it purchase the spur line, possibly put up historic signs as other local Virginia governments have done when rehabilitating trails?
That's an excellent question. I often wonder about that myself. This rail line, I think, is ripe for some historic signs along the way. I think that people would be very interested in knowing exactly where this line ends and where it begins. And it wouldn't take very much, I don't think, to put up an historic sign that would indicate exactly what the history is all about. I think that's something that would really, I think, go very, very well at an Oronoco Bay Park. The signs that I showed you that described Alex Renew, what they're going to do with the area that it used to be the Robinson Terminal. Those posters are very informative. All we would need is something like that along the Oronoco Bay area, along the rail line, to explain what was and the importance of that line. So I agree with the questioner 100%. As far as rehabilitating the line, yes, that probably would take, my estimate, please don't hold me to it because I'm not sure given costs these days, probably would be in the neighborhood of $200,000 to maybe $400,000 or $500,000, something like that. But what is that line going to be used for? We don't know. We like to visit. We have family up in the Saratoga Springs area of upstate New York, and there are a lot of abandoned rail lines there. And they're making good use of these lines with something called rail biking. It's a system where on these lines, the abandoned lines are rehabilitated for a short distance, and rail bikes where you pump and power basically bicycles with wheels that fit on the rails, and you can pump yourself all up and down the line. You can see this rail biking on the internet. It's quite interesting, and it's very, very successful, I think, in not only New York State but in New England as well. Anybody have another question? That was an excellent question, and I thank the questioner for that.
There's an observation about how they believe that it'd be a good use for the defunct railroad lines to be used to create a walking tour of the area. A follow-up comment is, do you know the electric power sources for Virginia, DC, Maryland, and Pentagon since GenOn is gone? Are they now all independent power sourced? And they were asking that if Virginia and the Pentagon are now using Dominion energy.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. My guess is that, like other areas of the country, they're all using a grid where they share the power sources that could come from various sources. Could be solar power. A lot of the coal-fired power plants are taken down now. for environmental reasons. And in their place, there are gas-fired, natural gas-fired power plants. There are also nuclear-powered plants. They all contribute to the grid. My guess is, and again, don't hold me to it because I'm not sure, but I would imagine the areas that the questioner asked about are probably getting power off the grid. If you if you have looked at what happened down in Texas recently, that was a situation where they were getting power off the grid from solar power and various other sources, and something went awry with the cold weather, with the snow and everything. So there are advantages of taking power off the grid, and there are disadvantages too. So, but that's my guess. That's my guess is where those areas are getting the installations are getting the power.
The next question is, were there any locations originally considered before placing it where it was?
No, that is in my opinion anyway, with that map that I showed you and that I took off the internet, that's been there a long time. These tracks, can we keep going? Couple more, right there. You can see this Alexandria, Loudon, and Hampshire railroad coming down into the Oronoco Bay area. This railroad was established in the in the 1800s. I would say 1830, 1840, from what I remember. So it was there. Could they move the tracks now? Yeah, that would be awfully expensive, and I don't know where they're going to put them because the area aside these tracks now, townhouses and all kinds of recreational sites. So let's go one more image. But anyway, then yeah. So you can see right here, although this map does show you the commercial value along the river, these sites are all now. We live in the Torpedo Factory condominium area, which is along the river, along Lee Street. But at one time, my guess is there was a rail line very close there, but not any longer. It ends, as I mentioned to you, at the end of Oronoco Street, which is right here. There's Oronoco Street. You come down, and at one time there was a chemical company there. So that wharf that we talked about probably served that chemical company. But the tracks are very historic, and I would not want to see them move.
Another question is, who funded the rail line? What power sources were generally used for it?
The rail line was originally owned, was part of the Southern Railway. You can see that on this image here, the Southern Railway Company owns the tracks. It's now, because of the rail lines and all the mergers, it's now Norfolk Southern. They own the lines. What they're going to do with it, I don't know. And they funded it, they own it, and it's abandoned as far as I can see. Maybe it's ripe for purchase by the city of Alexandria. Frankly, I don't see, with Robinson Terminal gone and the power plant, once the remediation takes place, that'll be gone as well. I don't see a industrial use. I don't see these lines transporting freight, quite honestly. I could be wrong, but I just don't see it. And maybe the Norfolk Southern Railroad now, very big company along with CSX Transportation that owns most of the rail lines in the Northeast and in the mid and along the coast and in the Southeast as well. I just don't see that they're going to use it, and I think it might be ripe for purchase for whatever use, historic or otherwise, the city of Alexandria wants to put it to. I have not heard any talk along those lines, so I really can't say that they're interested. So I don't know.
So another question is, did the rail line help the economy a lot?
Very good question, because again, what we see now in Old Town, or what they call Old Town North, which is, let's see, this is King Street, Cameron, this is King Street right here. And there was the commercial area right through here. And the images that I showed, the railroad certainly helped the Potomac River Generating Station, brought coal there. It was a coal-fired power plant, and it brought newsprint to the Washington Post for many, many years. I think around 70 years before the Washington Post sold the Robinson terminal that they bought. So yeah, I think that like the Potomac Yards was a mainstay of the Alexandria economy. Many jobs there. And incidentally, there are historic signs. If you go along, I think it's called Potomac Avenue now, along the just east of the shopping center, right along the river, and paralleling the metro, you will see many historic signs, many historic signs, and I think those historic signs would go well along the Mount Vernon Trail and the tracks. But to answer the question very briefly, yes, it was along with the Potomac Yards. The spur line fed and meant a lot to the Alexandria economy.
And the final question I'm showing touches on some of the prior ones, but it's, you touched on the reuse, but any chance a running trail would go in along the tracks, like on the, I'm forgetting my abbreviations, Washington and Ohio? The WNOD trail.
Would this Mount Vernon Trail connect to the WOD trail? I don't think it does right now. I think that there are too many highways and construction areas, townhouses, and traffic areas that would probably be difficult to cross. So I don't see it connected to the WNOD trail, although at one time, this rail line, it was connected. Excuse me. At one time, it was connected to the Washington and Old Dominion Railroad. I didn't go into that, but I don't see it serving as a rail trail, as they call it now. The Mount Vernon Trail, I think, begins, as I showed, along the along the Oronoco Bay area, and the WNOD trail ends probably somewhere along Route 66, just before the Pentagon. Well, Tricia, if that's the last question, let me thank again everybody for tuning in this morning, and to you especially, Trish, for setting this up. Have a good day, everybody, and enjoy the Preakness this afternoon, and I hope your favorite horse wins.
Thank you for going over this topic with us. We really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun seeing the images and how things have changed and learning a bit about the rail system. So we appreciate this very much. And,
Well, you're very welcome.
everybody, our next program for local history will be digital collections around the world, Central and South America, on the 29th. We did have to reschedule that one. So that's when that one will be showing up. So again, thank you. And we appreciate everybody's attendance, and we'll see you next time. Bye.